Boom, here we go. All right, gentlemen, we are here with another episode of the Unpopular Opinion. Uh, Joining us again, my main man, Terrell. Welcome, brother. Hank, thank you for joining us again, man, for another episode. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
How you gentlemen doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
You good? All right, so
Blessed.
today we got a couple of questions from
Somebody said they're not able to hear.
Okay, let's get that fixed.
Hey, you still not able to hear us? Is anybody else watching that can hear?
It might be a little lag though, man, because I know last time it was a little bit of a delay.
Mic check. I just see what's his name? Tahir Shakur's comment. I'm not able to hear.
Hey, Tahir, are you able to hear us? Hey, guys, we can all hear each other?
Yeah,
I
hear
can.
you guys.
All right. Hey, Rel, is Ange watching on something else, or is she able to hear?
Yeah, I just sent it upstairs. She said, yeah, she can hear.
Okay, so
She can hear us.
All right, guys. So let's get started here. So, last week we left off, and it was a pretty interesting debates and dialogue reference the Mr. Floyd's case and these officers. And, it took a little bit of time for these indictments and things to come down. And finally, all four officers were charged. One of them initially was arrested, and then some time drug on for the other guys to get apprehended and cases filed against them. So just want to touch on what are your guys' thoughts about that, of the charges that are levied on the other three officers, and your thoughts on the time that it took for them to make the arrests on the other three. Hank, we're going to start with you.
Okay. So I'm happy everyone was arrested and charged ever since Keith Ellison, who's the Attorney General, took over the case. We got to see that. As far as how long it took for these officers to get charged, I'm not overly concerned with. I'm upset with it, but not overly concerned, as long as it leads to convictions. And Minnesota has already shown us that they are willing to convict cops, because in 2017, when Justin Diamond was killed by a black officer, they did convict that man to 12 and a half years on a third-degree murder charge. So as long as they top that, I think we are heading in the right direction.
Rel?
Well, I think the scary part is the conviction. It's easy to go into a relaxed mode because we see what actually happened as far as the charge for all four of them. But I think everybody's going to be sitting on the edge of their seats, man, waiting to see how this is going to play out, because you already hear the district attorney saying that it's still going to be difficult to get a conviction. And I think most of the people who are protesting, most of the people who have their emotions in what's going on are sitting on the edge of their seat. I think it's going to be real interesting to see, and it's going to be a while. I mean, it's not like it's going to come down next week. You know what I'm saying? This is going. They're going to have a case. They're going to have a trial. They're going to go through the steps, and it's going to be interesting to see that. I mean, so to me, the charges, that's cool, but I'm really waiting to see how this is going to play out, man, because you can look at what we've seen in the past, and we've had charges. They brought charges up on, most all of them, and some of them was dismissed. Some of them just got off. You know what I'm saying? Like, So I mean, this is just a beginning for real. And some people ask, well, why are they still protesting? And the protesting is coming is because if you turn your back right now, people gonna forget about it, and they'll think we're not looking, and then this officer slide off just like all the rest of them did. And that's the hard part to me. So I'm more interested in the actual conviction than I am the charges. And I know you got to start with the charges, but yeah, let me see what we're really talking about.
I think that, and I know it's the answer that a lot of people don't like to hear. It's extremely difficult to convict police officers. When you look at proving murder on a regular civilian is going to be a lot easier than proving murder, on a police officer, because the elements of murder is always the intent, right? Especially when we're talking about first degree. And I understand the frustration of the community, like people who have not served. They go, man, we see these police officers do these things all the time. And people go, no, they need to be, charged with murder. But it's so difficult to say, hey, even though I agree with it, someone who is in the course of their job saying that they had the intent on doing something. And that's what just spending a lot of time, in courtrooms and testifying and being case agents, that people who are on the outside of the like the legal or the judicial system don't know that. I don't want to say a game, but what goes on, it's extremely difficult to convict people of of certain things. So that's why we see certain charges not stick with officers that would probably stick with civilians. And I think that's where a lot of the frustration.
But why is that?
But hold on, real quick though. Same city, same state, just went through this in 2017 with Muhammad Noor, officer, and Justine Dotman. He was convicted on third-degree murder for 12 and a half. So it can be done.
I agree with you, but you see it just seems to take a little bit more time. And Minnesota, like you just said, Hank, seems to be setting the precedence, right?
Yes.
They seem to be dropping the axe on their officers and saying, hey, you know what? I've never been to Minnesota, and Rel, I don't know if you have any knowledge or know anyone from there of any issues, other than, that article we looked at earlier, things, that they deal with the police. But they seem to be trying to set the example for the rest of the nation that, hey, this stuff that's going on here, we're going to start holding our officers liable. Makes me feel good, honestly, because you guys have heard, both of you heard me say, I express, man, I can't stand the whole dirty cop thing. And I think that, Hank, Terrell, if I'm in the course of my duty, my job, and I cost somebody their life, that I should be equally liable as either one of you gentlemen. I shouldn't get a free pass. If anything else, we all being military guys, that we had to put our hands up and take that oath, right? And that oath, when we put our hand up for that oath, we assume a greater sense of responsibility than the average citizen. So.
Okay, but as a police officer, and I don't know if you ever had the unfortunate situation where you had to fire upon somebody. When you can look at it and see something that's blatantly wrong, when you can look at Philando Castillo and you can see the story, you can know the truth. They have, records of the conversation that he had. I asked him if he had, letting the man know he had a gun, letting him know he had the paperwork. He shoots this man in cold blood and kills him. What he fired, like 8 times in the car? And he got off. So regardless to what the job is, whatever response, you have a responsibility as a police officer to be trained to diffuse situations. You're supposed to be equipped to walk into a terminal situation, like whatever it is. And to me, it seems like the police officers escalate these situations, and most of the time because they're afraid or they're nervous or they're not prepared to be in the situation at the end. And It just I've never been a police officer, so I can't question what they do, what they know. But what gives you the right, even if you make a mistake in your job, what gives you the right to take a life? And that's why people wonder why, or people come up with these stats about why we're acting this way, and our percentage or our numbers are lower than what it is with this and that. It's because when you see a person that looks like you, that loses his life in a senseless manner, and nobody is held accountable for it, then what? They want to know why these people are rioting and looting. It's because they've seen this story before. They read this book.
You know what, Rel?
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead, bro.
I'm saying, and at the end of this book, this guy walks away, and then there's nothing said about him. You know what I'm saying? You got. I mean, you can list, countless guys, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Mike Brown. You know what I'm saying? You can list all of these guys, Philando Castillo. Nobody was held accountable for this person losing their life, and they go on with their life. They lose their job, and who knows what they go do. These kids, they'll write a book, they'll end up on somebody's newscast. It's just it's not right, man. And police officer or not, you took that man's life, and their thing is they trying to figure out how to justify it. To me, that's wrong.
I agree with you. I agree with both of you. I mean, I've been in a lot of those situations myself, so it frustrates me because, I mean, I've walked up on a car and a guy had a gun. And for me, if you tell me you have a gun, it actually brings me down because you knew you had the gun. So by you letting me know you had the gun gives me a little bit of ease, because it is also making me feel that you don't have, you're telling me that because you don't have any intention on doing anything to me. Though, just from my experience, it actually just helped me a lot, helped me calm down. So, and I was able to just do things professionally. Of course, you pull your gun out and, you go through your procedure, but in your mind, that it still shouldn't be, and I guess, Hank Terrell, I'm trying to get the words, because when I look at a lot of this stuff, I've been in a lot of these same situations, not that exact situation, but situations almost identical. And I look at, well, my situation's never turned out that way. Why is that? And that's extremely problematic.
Bottom line, these charges have to lead to convictions. I see Keisha's comment on the screen about the first degree winning stick. That's not what the charge is. The charge is for second degree murder and manslaughter. And for the other three officers, baiting, It's baiting murder in the second degree, and a baiting murder to second degree manslaughter.
Yeah, I think she was saying that's why they didn't charge him with first degree, because it wouldn't have stuck.
Yeah, she's saying it
wouldn't have been able to convict it.
Yeah, so, and that's fine. So the charges are second degree. We already saw this with a third degree, 2017, 12 and a half years conviction. Same city, same state. Do it again.
So I don't know if you guys are, and we can leave on this note from this topic. What happens with the DA's office? The DA will always try to charge for the highest, right? Hoping that he gets something. Because if you say, for example, if they just went for manslaughter, a good defense attorney would look at it and go, hey, you know what? This is probably what it's going to be anyway. So let's take the deal on this. Because I looked at I don't know if you guys read the exposure. Those dudes are all looking at 40 years.
Yes.
Yeah. And that, that's what they get. I honestly think the dude with the knee on the neck, maybe, I know that it wouldn't happen.
That's the max now. Yeah. That's the max now, saying they're looking at it now, understand. So the chance of them as police officers getting the max, that's just what that could happen, which I doubt.
But that's why I say the target has to be what you've already shown me you're willing to do, and that's 12 and a half on a lesser charge. So you need to beat that. That should be the target.
All right, next question. So our next question is, how do you guys feel and this is touching on a little bit about, you know, what we were talking about last week. How do you feel about the rioting and the looting, and it resulted in the death of a retired police officer?
Well, you know, that was right here in St. Louis, and the guy was 77 years old, and he was standing outside a pawn shop. I think it was right there on Martin Luther King, and I think it's sick, because at the end of the day, even if he was a retired police officer at 77 years old, that's somebody's loved one, man. And I don't know what led up to the actual, because I could be wrong, but I thought he was shot also, like shot in the head or something. But whatever it was, when the police got there, they found him laying in the street. And to me, I can't. I mean, the senseless killing, you shooting at police. All police didn't do that. All police don't deserve that. You know what I mean? Like, that's, to me, that's disgusting. You take somebody's life for getting in your way of breaking into a pawn shop or whatever. I mean, this was an old man, you know. So, you know, to me, that's a short and sweet one, man. I think it's terrible.
Hey.
Yeah, I have to agree. And no matter how old he was, the senseless death of one individual should not lead to the senseless death of another individual. So there's no excuse for it. I'm not going to try to make an excuse for it. Although, yes, I can understand, as I said last week, some of the riots and some of the looting. I won't condone them, but I'm not going to condemn them either. But I am always going to be on the side of loss of life is wrong. I don't care who it is, what they did in most cases. Unless you are actually defending yourself, you shouldn't kill anyone.
It might take, I mean, it sucks. Even the loss of life of anyone. You know, I was telling Terrell earlier, Hank, that, you know, working, you know, the neighborhood that I did, you know, I've seen a lot of people, you know, shot and killed. And even if it's gang violence, you know, I was never out there like, oh, you know what, that's what they get. I always thought, because when you're on a homicide scene, shootings, I mean, it's horrific. You know, you're seeing them. You know, people are laying in the middle of the street. I remember this young one. It was around midnight, and I was the first on scene, and it was shots fired. I come around the corner, and this young dude, I don't even know if he was 18 years old. You know, he took a couple, rounds to the head, and you know, blood squirting out. And, you know, he's just laying there, and his cell phone is ringing. And my heart was like, man, that's probably his parents or one of his loved ones calling, wondering, hey, what time are you coming home? And knowing he's never, you know, they don't know he's never coming home. So whenever I hear about any loss of life and things like that, you know, it bothers me, because I just can't stand it all the way around. So.
Let me ask you this, Sid. As a police officer, retired, you and your partner pull up on the scene. You see your partner, say he shoot a guy, choke a guy, killing a guy. You tell him to stop, but he don't stop. He kills the guy. What do you do? Do you help him get out of there? What happens after that?
What do you mean? Do I help him?
I'm like, do you say, hey man, because he's now, if he's in the hood, he could be in jeopardy because everybody saw that and people start coming, they can start a riot. Do you help I don't know what happens. You got some police officers where they say, well, why don't you stop it? You can't stop it, but you're right there on the scene. What is your next step? Do you try to calm the crowd down? I mean, what goes on? Do you call? I don't know what happens.
If it results in a loss of life, or even if it's a serious injury, it becomes a crime scene. So,
like if you're that Asian guy, do you pull? You see what's going on there? Do you pull him off of that guy's neck?
Absolutely. You have to. If the three of us are on a scene and you or Hank are on someone's neck or whatnot, and you're hurting them, somebody has to take charge and say, look, you hear people saying, hey, he can't breathe, he's not moving. Someone has to make a decision and go, hey, real, I got to get you up off of. If I got to, give you a clothesline or whatever it's going to take and get you up off the guy, you have to, because as you see now, all those officers bear responsibility on that.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I was waiting.
So here's the next question that was brought in. Does growing up with no hood experience make people of color naive to Black issues? So I want to read the whole thing. Does growing up with no hood experience does growing up with no hood experience make affluent Black people or affluent people of color equally naive as whites when things being considered on Black issues? Terrell, I'll let you start off with that one.
I think it's terribly naive to think that because you're Black, you have to have hood experience in order to understand the Black plight. We are much deeper people than just the hood. We are from everywhere, man. I mean, to me, that question is simple. And I mean, I've lived in the hood. I've grown up in the hood. I got friends in the hood. I go there. I don't think that that's something that determines your Blackness. I don't think you have to have. I mean, because that's cheating the rest of society, man. That's treating our people. That's cheating us to say if you didn't grow up gang banging or selling dope or standing on the corner, or, you know what I'm saying? If you didn't grow up in that lifestyle, then you can't understand Black people. Somebody would have to explain that to me, man, because that's not where everybody comes from. And as a grown up, if you're not willing to evolve and learn more about your culture, because surprise, our people wasn't born in the hood. You know what I'm saying? We had to create things that were given to us that were less. We had to make a way out of no way. But just because you don't have to be poor or be struggling in order to understand Black people, or that's not even. I mean, I don't know. Black issues is way more than just the hood. You know what I'm saying? But black issues go way deeper than just homie over here and whatever he been through and whatever he did. And that's not to say because you came from the hood that you can't understand. I mean, that's just like saying, so if that's the case, then you're telling me that white people would never be able to understand our issues. So why are we asking them to?
But now you're assuming so no white people can come from the hood? So, like, this is such a stupid question in the sense that, one, what is hood? What is that? And why does every Black person have to be from the hood, as Terrell said? Because I grew up in the suburbs majority of my life, but I do have family who is in the hood, the ghettos. But it wasn't just Black people. Everyone's there. Like every race, every religion, they're there. The thing that we had in common was we were economically challenged, and so I don't get this. It's so stupid. And if you're naive to Black issues, that's because you just choose to be naive. You choose not to educate yourself because there's plenty of other ways to get experience. You can read a book, watch a movie, you can have conversation. There's so many ways to get experience in life. That doesn't mean you have to grow up in this quote unquote hood.
Yeah,
it's a limiting mentality, man, because that's like saying if you have to grow up in the hood to understand Black issues, then that means you can't understand what I guess would be considered white issues, or you can't understand success because you grew up in the hood. You didn't grow up in a successful environment or successful lifestyle, so you'll never be able to understand that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can come from anywhere and understand somebody else's plight, somebody else's issue.
I think part of it too, Rel, and we've touched on this. And I can't speak for, the Latino or other communities. We like to group all of us together, and like both of you guys said, we all grew up different. We can't be mad at the brothers who grew up in the suburbs, or the brothers who may not have had negative police contact or things like that. That's what makes us all different individuals and things that we bring to the table, that we can share our experiences with other people. Your story isn't the same as Hank's or mine. That's how we all learn from each other. If we all had the same story, and that's exactly why some people don't grow. You have men and people running around 50 years old talking about you ain't black enough because you didn't come from the hood. Like, really? So because I never been in trouble, or I got a great credit score, and according to what they say black is, I don't qualify for any of that. It's ridiculous. Like, so you and Hank both shaking your heads. Like, it's just I don't get it. But that shows the mentality, Hank, and some of the people in our community.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is the mentality. I saw someone comment already that someone's missing here. So address that briefly. Tim didn't return for reasons that he can explain better than I can, but through conversations with him, some of the backlash he got through the comments was a little frustrating. And I understood what he was saying, because he might not have the same vantage point that we have. He doesn't have the same opinion, but the question his blackness, in a sense, is foolish. Because if you know Tim, you know that he does care about the community, and he is constantly trying to educate the community to see us be advanced, whether it be stocks or real estate or any other business venture that he's involved in. Any information he gets, he tries to take that to the rest of the community.
Thank you.
What the problem is that there's an issue of blackness. I mean, like, what is that?
Like,
I mean, somebody would have to really break down. I would have to. Somebody give me the criteria. I need to make sure I fit in.
Well, I guess it's subjective, and the mindset. I take my experiences and the things that I know about, resumes, credit, whatever, some of those things might be. And like I told you guys, I go back into those neighborhoods and those community schools where all of these kids are on probation and things like that. And I'm trying to help them be successful. I understand that they're never going to want to be a police officer. So I don't go in there trying to say, hey, you should love cops. What I'm more concerned about is, what can I do to help you become successful young men and women? And if I can show them that, hey, you know what, I'm a black man who is successful, that, I never had any run-ins with the police. It just shows a different perspective. And that's all. And it's great that if someone else can come in who may have had a run-in with the law, and then they're also successful. Like you guys said, it's silly.
And also, black issues are not isolated to the hood. You can be anywhere and find black issues. Let's just point that out.
Yeah. Nah, yeah. I mean, when you talk about, that's just silly to me too, man. It's we as people, we look at our own people, and if you're successful, or if you're a business, if you wear a suit to work and you conduct yourself in a certain manner, then you're trying to be white. If you talk a certain way, then you talk white. I talk intelligent. I know how to speak. You know what I'm saying? I know how to spell. I know what words mean that I use. I don't try to talk above my education to try to impress other people. But
right,
and
like they don't have a monopoly on being intelligent.
yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right, guys. Here goes one. Should police reform be federally mandated? So the gentleman who brought that up to me, his whole thing is that all police officers since we are all governed under federal law, there should be basically one SOP for all police departments, similar to what we all had to do in the military. Hank, I'll go on and let you start off with this one.
So mandated federally use of force, a standard, yes. I think that would be cool. I think that would be amazing. I think it's helpful. Unfortunately, without even getting there, I can also see problems with it because, as we all know, things are often subjective. So I think it's going to be a challenge, but I think it's a challenge that should be tackled because it's just too much. But unfortunately, I'm not a cop, never been a cop. And, you get in these situations, and I know you hear all the time that, oh, I fear for my life. I fear for my life. A lot of the times, to us outside looking in, it does look like a load of BS. But we're not in that situation. And so that use of force mandate, I think it becomes very subjective, and that makes it tricky.
Real.
I think it's cool, but I think until you get rid of the narcissistic personalities, the control freaks, the Napoleon complex, the racists, until you get rid of the people who have no self-control over being a better person, they just gonna be who they are. Until you get rid of those people, until you can weed out the people who have absolutely no business carrying a gun and a badge, until you can get to that, you can have all the mandate. I mean, people break laws and rules all the time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, shit. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. That what he did was against the law. It was against the rules or whatever he was taught. He wasn't taught that. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good idea if it was possible. But until you get rid of people who are joining the police force for the particular reason to be able to shit on other people, until you get rid of that guy, I mean, you can have all the rules and regulations that you want to, man. You're going to still run into these same problems because you have that good old boy network. And it's certain towns that I've been through, man, driving from St. Louis down to Houston that I don't even want to stop and get gas. I don't care what their mandate is. I don't want to stop there because I know if I get stuck there, it ain't going to be good for me. So, it's a good concept, but I don't know until you have a system developed to kind of be a lot harsher on who's allowed to have that kind of authority. It may be useless.
So accountability, like that's the part that has to take center stage. As Terrell said, you can have all the laws and people going to break them left and right. Until police are held accountable for when they do break these laws and held to a higher standard, then does it really matter?
I think both of you guys make very good points. Angie, her comment was right on too, as far as like money, right? I don't think that all departments probably have the same equipment. Those of us who've been our police officers in California, we have more resources. We have mandated training that we have to go through every year, and it's probably not the same in every department across the United States. So, but I'm 100 with you, Rel. Until you change people, their intentions, their perceptions, and how they deal with people, I think tweaking laws and things like that. I don't know how much that results, in change in our with our policing, because I can police a certain way and then another officer can come right through the same neighborhood, right, in the next shift, and he could change the dynamics totally by over policing and being heavy-handed. And and there have been examples of that where I'm out talking to guys in the neighborhood. I told you guys, I get out my police car, and when I say real, I'm like in the hood on the streets where they do shooting, not the make believe stuff. And I'm out there with a bunch of dudes that I know got guns, but they ain't messing with me. And we're out there just having conversations, talking about their family. They go, oh man, Martin, here comes Martin. He gonna preach to us, telling them to stay off these streets. And I leave, and maybe 5-10 minutes later, they got them same dudes sitting on the cement. That's problematic. Where I leave, and now another police officer comes and has everybody hemmed up on, sitting on the sidewalk with their hands on their knees. So,
like for instance,
so I got a question. I'll go ahead, Hank.
No, I was gonna say, like, how you say one person could come in and change the whole dynamic. Like, that's kind of what I think about with going back a little bit to the protests and the riots and everything. I know numerous people who have attended these protests, and I hear the same story from everyone. Hey, man, it starts peaceful. We're out there peaceful. We're not doing anything. Cops come in with tear gas and rubber bullets, and that escalates the situation, and then that's where the violence starts. There should be a standard that if things are peaceful, why are we trying to break it up with tear gas and rubber bullets? Why are we inciting the violence at that point? So that stuff like that should be standardized. There should be no reason why that is the standard.
Rael, what was your question?
Other than because there's a lot of protests and there's a lot of rioting, there's a lot of talk about the police reform, but what I've experienced in just this past week, and I think it's a lot of people who have this particular question. In your opinion, what can white people do to help this cause?
You know what? The first thing I think with anything is if you don't accept that there's a problem, if you're having a conversation with someone, and all of us been in relationships or whatever, and when your partner has addressed the problem, and when you go, yeah, but well, as soon as as soon as you say, yeah, but you're trying to change the narrative, and you're not wanting to address the issue. So I think the biggest issue, and we've been seeing it for the past week now, where we can look at different social media platforms and people's pages, and you have people that are acknowledging and accepting. And we still, Hank, Real, I'm sure we've seen a lot. You still have a lot of people, Candace Owens, that I'm sorry, I had to bring her up, that will sit there and tell us that, hey, listen, that tell all of us that our eyes are not what we see. And it just takes one person to change the narrative and say, no, see, yeah, but. And I think that's what it is, Rel, that we're not getting things solved because we don't have enough people that are just saying, hey, you know what? This is such an issue that we're going to have to do something to change. Hank?
We have too many people trying to change the issue. Like, whether go back to Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem in regards to police brutality and the injustices that we are facing in this country, that's what he was doing it for. That's what he said he was doing it for. Yet people still changed it and said he was disrespecting the flag and disrespecting the military. And since with George Floyd, the issues that we're seeing, we're talking about police brutality. We're talking about George Floyd being murdered. And people want to change it to, what about the riots? What about the looters? Who cares, honestly? Who could stop changing the focus point? This is what we're talking about. If you want to talk about the other stuff, we could talk about it later. Miss me with black on black crime. Like, we could talk about that later. Miss me with the buildings and the property damage. Let's talk about that later. Let's focus on what happened. And to that woman, I don't even want to say her name and give her more than she deserves. She went out of her way, like a lot of people do, will go out of their way to tell me all the bad things about George. I don't care. Don't care, because he didn't get killed while doing these bad things. He got killed on an allegation of using a $20 bill, a counterfeit $20 bill. To this day, I don't even know if it was counterfeit or not. And it, again, doesn't matter. Does not matter. He was murdered that day for that call by that cop. That is the focus. Anything else is just a distraction, whether it be the riots, the looters, or his past.
Right.
Keep the focus where it needs to be at.
So I got the next question up on the screen real quick, Grill, and he basically says, you know, Cedric, can an officer, especially one with more experience like yourself, at one point reach younger police officers on a way to treat people? So my answer would be, I can talk until Nick, I can talk to people until I'm blue in the face, but unfortunately I can't teach someone how to treat someone. By the time that you've gone through a 6-month police academy, you have to be at least 21 years of age. You should, if by 21 you don't know how to treat people, it doesn't matter how much training you have. You know, Hank Rell, you know, I mentioned it before that, you know, we go through every year, we have to go through cultural awareness and, you know, that type of training, right? We sit in a classroom for 8-9 hours and we talk about profiling and discrimination. And every year that I was sitting in that class, I would just sit there and think, honestly, I'd say, why are we here? Why are we in this class? Because if someone has that in their heart, do you really think that an 8-hour block that they walked out and they go, "Oh man, I'm so glad I got that racism off me," you know? No, that's just in their heart. And like Terrell and I have been talking all week, that's what we got to weed out of law enforcement. That is also why I make a big push for more people of color to be in law enforcement, because if we think that part of the issues are over policing by people who don't look like ourselves, then I go, well, let's try to get involved with that and maybe we can change that as well.
Yeah. Well, I tell you
Really?
right now, like,
but even within the police department, though, man, you can look at when they come up with, and I know anybody can write a complaint on a police officer, but when you look at this guy's background and all of the complaints and the issues and the situations that he's been in, at some point in 20 years, somebody higher up was supposed to get a hold of this. And it seems like nobody's being held accountable. As you know, they throw it downhill or they hide it or they tuck it up under. But this guy is boss, whoever his superiors were throughout his career, somebody should be held accountable for not pulling him to the side and getting him together. And that's never been done, man. And they take these new cops, and that's why it can't be a police officer talking to somebody else. You take these new cops who fresh out the academy, they went to an all-white school, they've never been around black people of color, you know, Hispanic, and us as black men, we loud, we talk with our hands, we aggressive, and that's just us playing around and having a good time with each other, you know, and you have a police officer that comes in and he hears you yelling and screaming and he automatically thinks that the situation is escalated. Honestly, that's how some of us talk. You know, and with him not being able with him not having any history or experience dealing with a different demographic of people outside of his own culture, he's coming into this situation already nervous. He's coming into this situation, you know, looking to protect himself. He's thinking, I got to get home. So anything could possibly happen. So I know we may not have a lot of police officers in certain areas, but why are we continuing to send these kids or these officers? Because they don't have to be kids. They can be 20-year veterans and they still don't have experience in certain neighborhoods with certain people, other than the fact that I'm the boss, you do what I say and shut up and get out of my way until I leave. And when you come to people like that, they're not going to receive it well. So if you're sending people in these communities and they don't know how to deal with and communicate with people in these communities, there is the problem.
Point made.
And you know your people, right? Like, I think in any profession, when you have people underneath you, part of your responsibility is to know what kind of people you have. If you know someone is maybe aggressive to a certain community, why continue to send them to that community? Now, you might not be able to get them out like right away. Maybe you can't fire them. Maybe you can't get rid of that bad apple, but don't continue to put that bad apple in places where they can do damage.
Right. Agreed. So next one kind of piggybacks off of what we're just talking about. Hey, Rel, why do you think there's a big disconnect between police and the community? And when we say community, we're talking about all the communities that we service, not just Black and Hispanic, but I mean, there's even a disconnect with the white community in certain areas too. So what do you think why that is?
Because people don't trust the police. And I think it's your job, if you're policing a neighborhood and this is the neighborhood that people are supposed, the way it was designed, it's supposed to be people that you trust. It's supposed to be people that are there to protect you. And it's not mean that they're there to work for you, but they're supposed to be there to protect and serve, unless I understood that wrong. But people do not trust the police. And that goes to, part of the topic that we were going to talk about is white privilege. When white people get pulled over by the police officers, they have the privilege of knowing that they're going to go home. We don't have that privilege. We don't get that comfort. When you get pulled over by the police, you know what you have to do. You know it's okay. I got to be respectful. I've seen some people get pulled over and have an argument with the police and finish with, "Let me get your badge number because this ain't going down like that." That's not realistic, in situations that I've been in or things that I've seen, and I think until trust is earned. It's not the people are supposed to trust the police and wait for them to do right. The police are supposed to earn these people's trust because you're coming into their neighborhood, whatever neighborhood it is, and you're supposed to earn their trust and earn their respect. And if you don't earn respect from the people that in the environments that you're working for, then you're making your job harder because you got to be out there.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things in all the communities, no matter what, as an officer, you have to see yourself as one of the people. You know what I mean? If you can't see yourself in the community that you serve, it's problematic. And so it's just being human. I don't ever say let your guard down, but people respect officers, I think, differently when Hank sees that I'm a human, when Hank sees that I make mistakes and I'm okay with admitting that. Rel, I was telling you, Hank, so I was telling Terrell, I stopped this guy one day on the freeway. He was driving reckless, speeding, he was doing something, right? So I pull him over and I had a bit of an attitude with him. And so I was probably a little bit aggressive with him. He starts giving it back to me. So in turn, I start taking it up a little bit and he goes, "Look, officer, the reason why I'm talking to you that way is how you approached me." Hank, I thought to myself and I said, "You know what, sir?" I said, "You are absolutely correct. When I approached you, I was a bit aggressive in my demeanor and how I talked to you, which solicited you talking to me a certain type of way. And that I want to apologize to you for."
And that's not common.
That goes a long way where I can say, "You know what? I'm wrong." I can't tell you guys how many times that I've conducted a search warrant or I've searched people, and you guys see all the time, like how we do search warrants and we rummage through people's stuff and throw it everywhere, where I have taken the time to pick up people's clothing and things that I've thrown out of the drawer and refold stuff. And some officers will come in there and go, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, people already don't want us in your house. Regardless of what color you are, we're in your house and we're going through things. Why do I want to leave that taste in your mouth, Hank, that I threw your clothes and stuff all over your house?" So I was in there folding people's clothes back up, putting it in their drawer. when I do searches out on the street, I lay everything on the hood of my car, like just in a neat row. I don't just throw stuff all on the ground. I don't know. I just think that's disrespectful. You are already hemming up people who don't want to have any interaction with you.
Yeah, and aren't I
Say it to police uniform.
Like, seriously, am I not innocent until proven guilty? Like, you're gonna get resistance when you meet people that way. Again, going back to the protest, you meet them with tear gas and rubber bullets. They were peaceful before you did that. But you also have officers, which isn't talked about enough, that are out there marching with the people, who are out there hugging the people, talking with the people. Those ones remain peaceful because the officers come and they respect them as human beings. That's all you want. All I'm asking for is a little respect. I'm innocent until proven guilty. Don't treat me like a criminal because I'm not a criminal.
All right. Final question. So moving forward, guys, what do you guys think that will take? And this kind of touches on what Nick mentioned earlier in his question. What do you think it takes to break the blue code of silence? Good police officers turning a blind eye to what's going on.
Not a cop. I don't know.
I think the yeah. I think the. I'm
sorry, I'm laughing at Geronimo.
Yeah.
like for real, like you can't. I think it's hard to change any community from the outside. I think that is very challenging, and I'm on record having this conversation with my girl. Our son really wants to be a police officer. That's what he's about. That's all he cares about. You can't tell him nothing different. He is super excited, super stoked. He got about 500 police cars that he played with, helicopters and everything. It makes me nervous, but I'm super excited though at the same time because I'm like, man, this kid stays this excited and we make sure we do our job as parents and raise him correctly, then he can go in there and he's the one who can help change this. So,
real.
Gotta do it for him.
I think you got to until you get rid of the bad cops, you're not going to get rid of the what is it, the blue code of silence. Yeah, that's. I mean, because you're going to always have people that's going to look out for each other, man. And it's good or bad or indifferent. You're going to have people they're going to ride with what they know, and it may sound easy from our point of view. You know, the good cops should tell on the bad cops. We don't do that in our own neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? It ain't like nobody sitting in our neighborhood is running around saying, hey, man, they selling dope down there on the corner. You know, hey, that's the dope house right there. Get them up out of there. Or Lil Rah shot Pookie last night. I said, yeah, ain't nobody saying that in our neighborhood, but you expect police, they just like us. They humans just like us. They got their own world, and they going to cover up for their bad people too because they got the same thing. No, you snitch on us, and then where you going to go work? What you going to go do? It's not that easy. You know, it's ideal that would really be, you know, a special thing if we didn't have to worry about the bad cops because the good cops would tell on them. But that's not realistic. In every aspect, I mean, you can pick any career, and you got bad people, and you got other people who ain't telling on them for doing bad stuff. You know what I'm saying? Until they back up against the wall, then it's like, hey, it wasn't me.
Right.
But it was a good question here where they want to know what a black police officer tells their sons and nephews about bad cops or what they have to deal with. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah, I see it. He got it on the screen right now.
It's up right now.
Yeah.
For to hear. So I have a son, and one thing both of you guys know, man, my cousin, I love him to death. We had a bit of falling out on some things that we had a disagreement on. And I guess I do have some privilege. I'm just keeping it real. I do have a certain privilege that you and Rel don't have, right? That I have a little bit of comfort knowing that if or whenever I get stopped by the police, that from my position, I know that I'm going to be treated differently. As soon as they know whether if they run my license plate or just, come up on the car and they know there's a gun in the car and I'm an officer, they know that there's a certain way that they just have to treat me because of what I know. So when I talk to my son,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but is that right?
What do you mean? Is it right?
Like, if they know
no, it's not. But what I'm saying, Hank, is the comfort that you and Terrell may not have, because I don't think either one of you guys fear the police, right? Terrell, I mean, you guys have concern. My concern, and I don't know if you fear or not. Like, my concern would only arise because obviously, the stuff that I know as far as things that police can and cannot do legally is when they would start doing those things, then I would be a little bit more concerned. But me driving around, things like that, I can be honest with you, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone in the chat or either one of you guys that have those concerns. I don't ever think about it. When they first mandated the face mask for everybody, remember, I saw a whole bunch of Facebook posts and chats like, oh my gosh, now we're going to have to worry about the police. Maybe we walk into a store. For me, I never ever think twice about that because it's something that maybe, I don't know if you guys want to say I'm naive to or whatever, but it's something that's not a concern of mine. And I don't know if it's so much of my position, because even when I was younger, I mean, when Rel and we were in the military, I mean, we stayed out of their way, but it was never like, oh my gosh, San Jose PD's right there, let's go the other way. So when I talk to my son, nervous. So Hank, when I talk to my son,
but you have a luxury.
Yeah, I agree with that. So when I talk to my son, I raise my son to be a certain way. I'm not raising him to bow down or anything. Like, I tell him, hey, be respectful. Have your stuff. If you feel that there's any type of unfair treatment, there is also a forum to deal with it. Don't argue a traffic stop. Don't be a certain way. And I guess those are the things that we don't have the luxury of doing. And I said, you have an ace in the hole. He always has an ace in the hole with me, that he can go, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to, and I tell him, say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you, officer. I feel that what you're doing is not legal, but you know what? After this, my dad's in law enforcement and he'll take care of it. That's what I teach my kids.
And everybody else, man, just pray you get up out of there. And then we'll try to, I mean, even the question, like you said, what did I do? Or I don't like the way that you're doing this. That ain't something I can tell my son to say. That I don't like the way that you're doing this, and I don't think that it's appropriate. Or that's not something, like, we don't have the luxury of saying that. And that's the problem. Even the fact that we have to teach our kids how to present yourself in front of the police when they pull you over, that is a serious issue, man, because you're supposed to respect adults. And I teach my kids that you respect adults. So whether it's a police officer, a fireman, the neighbor, you respect adults. But you can't, my son can't be pulled over. And if he tells me that he told the police, hey man, I don't really like the way you're talking to me, and it's really out of line, let me get your badge number, man. I got an issue with him saying, what I'm saying? Like, hey man, take whatever you got coming and let's get up out of here, and then we'll deal with this, at a later date. And that we shouldn't have to do that, but that's our reality.
That's the talk, right? Like, it's funny, when people say the talk, a lot of times you're talking about the birds and the bees, but inside the Black community, we know the talk isn't really about the birds and the bees now, is it? It's about how do you conduct yourself with law enforcement. Like, what do you do to survive?
You know what, Hank, what's so funny, because, my parents are from the South, and I can be honest with both you guys, my parents never had that talk with my brother and I, ever. Never.
Like, I know my mom told me to shut up, be respectful, and we'll deal with it later. But like, I get told all the time I talk too much. There's concerns of me being on this podcast right now because I talk too much. So
yeah. I think you guys made good points. I think one of the things that really, and I wanted to touch on it earlier about changing a lot of things in policing is also being part of your communities. Like the stuff that I told you, and it's not me trying to be braggadocious or anything, but if more cops went and did things in their community, you look at me different. Like Hank, we live close to each other. You know, the area I live would be considered a little, especially for the IE, it's more affluent area, right? Yes. We don't have a whole lot going on over here.
It's quiet.
Yeah, it's a really nice community. It's definitely affluent, but I still go. My dentist and stuff is in the neighborhood that I used to work in, like where they still shoot. So, hey. Because, Rel, I just feel like I'm still part of that community. Hey, Hank, I went to the dentist one day, Rel. I went to the dentist, and I was in my own personal car. And after I left the dentist, I drove right over to the streets that they have weekly shootings. They shoot up. Rel, you know what I'm talking about? Every neighborhood got that house to get the weekly shooting. and I went right to the house, and, they kind of was looking at the car, and then they saw it was me. They all came out. I get out my car and I'm out there talking and hugging him. I'm out of uniform. That's the respect that you should be able to get as an officer in your neighborhood because of the type of work that you do, because of things that you're doing that people realize, hey, man, we might not care too much for you because you're the man, but we see that you're genuinely trying to do things in our community that are positive. And I think that is one of the things.
Like we need to see them out. And what's great is my ex, I think she did a real good job with our daughter when it comes to how she acts around police. We have police family members, and I know I remember one day I was so mad. I got pulled over down the street for like an illegal lane change with my daughter in the back seat, and the officer gave me a ticket. I'm sitting here, I'm mad as hell, and my daughter in the back seat just laughing and giggling, and she wanted to talk to the cops, like, can I get a sticker and everything? And so, and the cops gave her stickers. And that little transaction, I'm like, man, I got to make sure I don't take my feelings and put it too much on my kids. I need them to grow up respecting officers and everything. And just having a good image of the police, man, having that good image will go a long way. But it has to be mutual. Like, the police have to stop looking at every black person as a threat or a thug. It has to be mutual.
And the funny thing is, we develop a mentality. We develop a mentality, and it's not even necessarily. Because I've heard this, no matter what the community, we start to develop a us against them mentality. That we are here.
When you say we, you're talking about the hood, you're talking about the police.
I'm talking about the police. That we.
Okay, I gotta figure out what you're talking about.
Yeah, we get a mentality to say, well, it's us, because everybody's so much against law enforcement that we have to band together, and it's us against everyone else. And I'll say
that's the picture they painted.
Yeah, and not necessarily only that way with the community of people of colors, but just in general, like, we feel that we're a band of brothers, and it's just we all have to have each other's back, and that type of mentality. So.
It's crazy when you said us against them. I thought you were talking from the other perspective.
That's why I asked. So we talk which one.
Yeah, and that's the sad part. Like we see it right now. Like, both sides feel it's us against them. How are we ever going to improve as long as everyone has that mindset?
I'm hoping that the death of this young man, that it was so bad and so egregious that no one could, except for certain people that we won't even mention their name, I see it in the chat, that they would make an excuse for that. Everyone else, even law enforcement, can't go but on that one.
Well, some people try.
You know what I mean? But for the most parts, it's we can't even say but. And I think maybe this is what can spark change. I mean, you and I, we've been around for a minute. I've never seen police officers, really, they don't say anything. You know, we might say, man, you know what? Yeah, so-and-so got killed, man. I feel sorry for that. But overwhelming things on, you know, social media where people want to distance themselves for that. Like, you know, hey, I'm not like that. So let's hope that this is one of the first steps that we can all take, but we need to keep the wheels rolling. And I think it was you, Rel, that mentioned earlier that not to let this kind of settle in and us forget about it. You know, we still have to worry about a conviction. And we also need to start dealing with stuff politically because, okay, now that we've burned down the city and we've destroyed all the communities, now what do we do? That's what I'm concerned about now. Like Hank said, you know, you're okay with a lot of stuff, but what's the next step that we take now? Now we have to start talking to police chiefs, mayors, city officials, because they're on the hot seat right now.
And that's happening. That is taking place across the nation. I mean, last report I saw said 50 states participated in the protests, 18 different countries. This is the largest protest. This is a united front that we have ever seen. The rally behind the murder of George Floyd, to where his daughter says, "My daddy changed the world." I really believe it could be a true statement, and I think this is a turning point that a lot of us have been waiting on. A lot of us have been crying out for. A lot of us have been begging and pleading for. I think we are in the midst of that moment, but we have to follow through, have to be political. Go out and vote. Don't care if you don't like the presidential candidates. You can always look at the rest of the ballot. There's other stuff on there. Stop thinking your vote doesn't count. Get up off your butt, get registered, go vote. Because there's something on that ballot that's going on in your community that you care about.
Them propositions and those things on that local level.
They vote on police chiefs. You have to. It's not just the presidential election, the midterms, everybody else on the ballot. You got to the school board. You got to start demanding in your community what you want and how you want to succeed. We have to stop accepting status quo. We can't continue to say this is what it is. We gonna this all we get. You have to want more. You have to demand more. And if you get out there and you look at it, and if you don't like what you see, then create something different. You know what I mean? There's nothing saying that either you can't run or you can't find somebody to run, but get somebody for you to get behind. And I have to tell you, man, I've seen more white people out protesting than I would have ever imagined standing up for us. We still got a lot of them that's hiding, what they Drew Brees. We still got a lot of Jake Fromm, like I was telling y'all earlier. We got a lot of them that's hiding, what they let it slip out. But there's a lot of people who are getting that light bulb turned on. And we need it. We're not going to just do it by ourselves, but we have to start with ourselves and for ourselves. It's just like anything, man. I help anybody that's trying to help themselves. But somebody who out there just doing nothing, I don't have nothing for you.
Amen. All right. We about to wrap.
Yep. Sergio said 10 minutes of research goes a long way. I agree with you, brother.
Shout out to him. I miss you, man. Yeah. Wish you were still at the base.
We got to hold on one more. Look. Yeah.
Black man has to die to change the world. A lot of people have to die to affect change. It's unfortunate, but it is the truth. It's just the truth. If you're religious, Jesus died for our sins, right? Like, death brings about change in a serious way.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate.
And what people also have to understand is people complain about the protests and the rioting. Protests you're supposed to make you uncomfortable. If I'm protesting and somebody is still comfortable, I'm wasting my time. You know, it's not. I'm not here to be your friend. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's designed to be uncomfortable. So you're not supposed to like it. You're not supposed to agree with what I'm doing. You're supposed to look at it and say, "Hey, man, I don't like seeing this. Let's do something about it." So you're supposed to, if you're uncomfortable with the protest, you're supposed to be.
Amen.
Yep. Man, well, it was a pleasure being with you brothers again. I want to thank you two gentlemen. I want to thank everyone who took the last hour out of their time to join us in this forum. It's greatly appreciated. We'd also like you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and smash the like button, because that actually helps us grow our forum as well, right? I think that this is something that's needed, that not all of us can get on a TV or a sports show and be able to share our opinions. So the more that you guys subscribe to our channels, and it helps us be able to grow together as a community, and be able to get our message out there, man. And I want to say God bless all of you guys. Be safe, and we'll do it again next week.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
You see the happy birthday shout out?
Oh yeah, it's really real birthday today, man.
Happy birthday.
All right, man. I appreciate all y'all,
All right,
man. Take care. God bless.
Sir.